This presentation was produced by Rotman Safety. Raul Rotman, Certified Safety Officer, license number 108703. Most safety management plans in Israel are written back to front. Someone downloads a 10-chapter template, fills each chapter with generic content, attaches a risk survey as an appendix, signs it, and files it. The result is a file, not a plan. The 10 chapters are the output of the risk survey, never its input. The survey is the engine. Every line in the plan should be traceable back to a finding in that survey. We begin by defining the assessment boundaries. What is included? The site or plant structure, its activities, the execution phases, and everyone employed there, including subcontractors, manpower agencies, maintenance crews, and visitors. On a construction site, the boundary is not fixed. Excavation, structure, finishing, and systems are effectively 4 different sites with 4 different hazard maps. A static plan on a construction site becomes fiction the moment the first phase ends. Once the boundaries are set, we gather the information sources. You do not start from a blank page, and you do not start from memory. The mandatory sources are accident investigations and near-miss reports, findings from the certified inspector covering lifting equipment, pressure vessels, and electrical installations, environmental monitoring and medical surveillance, safety data sheets for every substance, labor inspector reports and open deficiencies, manufacturer instructions, and interviews with the workers who actually perform the task. The 2 sources most often skipped are previous investigations and worker interviews, and those are precisely the 2 that reveal the gap between the written procedure and what actually happens in the field. With the information in hand, we break the workplace into units of analysis using 3 parallel cuts. The first is by task, job safety analysis. Break the operation into steps and identify the hazard at each step. The second is by location, a shaft, an excavation, a roof, a confined space, a traffic route. What is dangerous about this place regardless of who is standing in it? And the third is by role. What is this worker exposed to across a full day over all their tasks? A welder, a crane operator, an electrician. Run only one cut and you will miss things. The worst hazards appear where the 3 intersect. For example, a welder working inside a shaft. Identification itself is done against a structured, closed taxonomy, not against whatever comes to mind. What is not on the list will not be examined. And now the assessment itself, where the most common error lives. The popular formula, likelihood times severity, is a simplification that produces the wrong ranking. A correct assessment has 3 dimensions: exposure, how many workers, how often, and for how long; likelihood, given the actual exposure in the field; and potential severity, based on the reasonable worst case. And we assess twice. Inherent risk is the level assuming no controls at all. Current risk is the level with the controls that exist in practice and have been verified as effective. A control that nobody follows does not count. The gap between the 2 is your degree of dependence on controls, and it is exactly what you lose the day a single control fails. One last point here. A rating that does not compel a defined action and a time frame is a score, not management. When the risk level is not acceptable, the hierarchy of controls comes into play. This is not a ranking of professional preferences. It is a binding order, and you may not descend a level without documenting why the level above it is not feasible. First, elimination. Remove the need for the hazardous task altogether. Assemble the guardrail at ground level and lift it as a complete unit. Second, substitution. A less hazardous substance, method, or item of equipment. Third, engineering control. This physically prevents contact. Guardrails, covered openings, fencing, local exhaust ventilation, energy isolation, machine guarding. Fourth, administrative control. This changes behavior, procedures, permits to work, training, signage, rotation, time separation between contractors. Fifth and last, personal protective equipment. It reduces the injury only after the event has already occurred. A helmet and a harness are level 5. A plan that arrives at personal protective equipment without documenting why the 4 levels above it were examined and rejected has failed the audit. Take a worked example. Installing a guardrail at a roof edge. Elimination means the guardrail is assembled on the ground and lifted as a unit, so nobody stands at the edge. Substitution means using a mobile elevating work platform instead of standing on the roof. Engineering means a temporary guardrail, a safety net, or an anchor line installed in advance. Administrative means a work-at-height permit, dedicated training, and direct supervision. And personal protective equipment means a harness with a fall arrestor, which also requires a rescue plan. On most sites, people start at the last row and stop there. The plan must show why the rows above it were examined and rejected. After the controls are applied, we assess again. What remains is the residual risk, and the decision whether it is acceptable is a signed management decision, not a decision for the safety officer. The safety officer presents the complete picture. What risk remains, which alternatives were examined, what they cost, and what each one means. Management decides, signs, allocates the resources, and carries the responsibility. Work at an unacceptable level of risk does not begin. Full stop. And an acceptability decision that is not signed and documented does not exist. Now, and only now, the 10 chapters get written. A risk requiring personal competence feeds the training chapter. Equipment posing a risk feeds the examinations chapter. Exposure to a harmful agent feeds the medical surveillance chapter. High-risk activity feeds the permits and procedures chapters. And recurring failure feeds the investigation chapter. A training plan not derived from a risk survey is a list of courses, not a plan. The translation itself takes the form of a register. Every finding becomes one row: the hazard, the number of people exposed, the inherent assessment, the controls chosen, each one labeled with its hierarchy level, the residual risk, an owner, a deadline, and a status. You cannot complete a row without passing through every stage. A missing cell is a skip stage. From there, we move to measurement. Lagging indicators count failures after they have happened. The number of accidents, lost time days, severity of injuries. They are essential, but they arrive late. And on a small site, they are statistically meaningless. Alongside them, you need leading indicators: the percentage of planned inspections completed, the average time to close a deficiency, the percentage of workers with valid training, the near-miss reporting rate, and the percentage of equipment with a valid examination. These are the measures a site foreman can influence today. And note this carefully: a rising near-miss reporting rate is usually a sign of trust, not deterioration. A sharp fall in reporting is the figure that should worry you. The plan is reviewed periodically and immediately upon any of the following: a change in process, equipment, or substance, a transition to a new execution phase, a new subcontractor entering site, an incident or near miss, a labor inspector finding, a structural or organizational change, and a regulatory change. Updating is not rewriting. In most cases, it means a focused re-examination of the risks the change touched. 3 documents get confused in the field, and it is worth separating them. The Safety Management Plan is a system-level document for the whole workplace, derived from a risk survey. The Site Safety Organization Plan is operational and specific to one construction site: layout, access and escape routes, hazard zones. And the Safety File is the accumulated documentary record, retrospective proof of performance, not a planning tool. None of the 3 substitutes for the others. Now, responsibility. This is where plans fail, and it does not begin with the site foreman. The developer or client is responsible for appointing role holders, allocating a safety budget, and setting achievable schedules. Contractor selection and a compressed program are safety decisions in every sense. The occupier of the workplace, the principal contractor or works executor, is responsible for the plan's existence, approves the acceptable risk level, and signs it. The site manager runs the whole operation in compliance with the plan, coordination between contractors, sequencing of phases, enforcement of controls on the ground. The safety officer leads the risk survey, drafts the plan, advises, audits, supports investigations, and reports to management. The site foreman implements on the ground, verifies that controls exist in practice, stops work at risk, and reports gaps. And the safety controller carries out close, continuous monitoring across the changing construction phases. No link in this chain can pass the responsibility further along. What does each of them take away? The developer. Do not approve a program that leaves no room for the controls. The occupier. Sign the acceptable risk level yourself. That signature is the decision. The site manager. Ensure the plan is updated at every phase transition and every contractor entry. The safety officer. Present management with alternatives and costs, not findings alone. The site foreman. Walk the engineering controls every morning. Guardrails, covered openings, fencing, energy isolation. And the safety controller. Document the gap between plan and execution even when nobody asked. Before an external audit, run a self-assessment. 12 questions, and the answers are not yes or no, but where is it written? Remember, stop work authority is not a courtesy. It is part of the plan, and it belongs to every link in the chain. 4 points to close. The survey produces the plan. The assessment has 3 dimensions and is performed twice. The hierarchy is a binding order, and protective equipment is last. And acceptability is a signed management decision. Those who do not deal with safety, safety will deal with them. Produced by Rotman Safety, Raul Rotman, Certified Safety Officer. For more information, visit rotman-safety.com or call +972 54 201 7006.